Hi friends, Juan the Yarn Addict here, bringing you a tutorial for the Chunky Monkey Market mesh bag. So here is the bag. It is a larger style mesh bag and it's super easy, a lot of fun to work up. So the bottom here is this oval, which I show you every step of the way. And then from there we get into a section of mesh, followed by twins in a stitch and the double crosses. I know with the variegated yarn it's kind of hard to see, but we have that strip there. And then from there we get into another section of mesh stitches there. And to finish it off, we have multiple rounds of single crochet, just for durability. And then we have the handles. So again, super easy and lots of fun to work up. Now, this is part 2 of a 2-part project. So part 1 is the hat. And there is a separate tutorial for this for left and right-handed crocheters. Feel free to check that out. It's just as meshy as the bag is. It comes together like twins in a stitch. It's a lot of fun. Now, both the hat and the bag were made using Peaches and Cream in the colorway Chocolate Milk. Now, for the project, you will need 2 cones. One cone is 674 yards, but running them together will give you the chunkiness that you need, hence the name. So I worked all of this up using a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. Feel free to use the hook that's most comfortable for you. And yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I can't wait to show you how to make this. And before you know it, it will be done. So let's go ahead and get started. I will see you on the other side. Okay friends, so here are the materials that I'm going to be using for this tutorial. I'm going to be using a pair of scissors, a darning needle to sew in my ends. I'm going to need a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. I'm going to need stitch markers as well as 2 skeins of Mainstays 100% cotton yarn in the colorway Brownstone. Now this is a medium 4-weight yarn. I'm running 2 together, hence the name Chunky. If you do not want to run 2 strands of medium 4-weight yarn together, then perhaps I would suggest maybe working with a 100% chunky cotton yarn if you can find it. But in either case, feel free to use the Peaches and Cream, running those together, or here is another suggestion, the 100% cotton yarn from Mainstays. It's completely up to you how you would like to do that. Okay, so now that you've seen the materials, let's go ahead and get started. Okay friends, so to get started, what we need to do is create a slip knot on our hook. Make sure that you have an adequate tail to sew in later on. However you do this is absolutely fine. This is how I do it. So from here, what we need to do is chain 30. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I will be back once I have 30 chains. Okay friends, so I have a chain of 30. And from here what we need to do is chain 1 more. And then we're going to go into the second chain from the hook. So not this one, we're going to go into that one right there. Let's insert our hook into that chain and do a single crochet. We're going to continue doing single crochets all the way down the chain. So insert your hook, draw up a loop, yarn over, and go through 2. And just continue doing that for all of the chains on the side. Okay? Go in, draw up a loop, yarn over, and go through 2. So continue doing that, and I will be right back. Okay friends, so I made it to the very last chain. And so from here, what we're going to do is we're going to loop around and we're going to work on the other side. Okay, so to do that, what we need to do is go back into that very last chain and we're going to do another single crochet, just like that. And then we're going to do that one more time. Go back into that same chain and do another single crochet. So that one chain should have 3 single crochets. Just like that. 1, 2, and 3. And then just make sure to keep this tail out of the way so you can continue working. So now that we are on the other side, what we want to do is place a single crochet underneath all of the single crochets from the other side. Okay, so we're going to go down here, draw up a loop, yarn over, and go through 2. Just look at where the stitches are from the other side and insert your hook directly underneath that and do a single crochet underneath every stitch of the side there, just like that. And this is what it should look like. Okay, so continue doing this and I will see you at the other side of the chain. It should look like that. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay friends, so I made it to the end of the other side, and so this side here has the 3 stitches in that last chain. You have the top and the bottom and the side, and then on this side we just have the top and the bottom. So before we move any further, I feel like we need to place some stitch markers. So on this side here we have the top, the bottom, and the side. So we need to insert a stitch marker in that stitch at the top there, and then we need to insert another stitch marker on the other side. So when we went around, we went in the last chain, we came back in, added 1, and then came back in and added the top there, and then we continued on. So it should look like this. Okay, so on this side here, let's go ahead and finish the side and then place our stitch markers. So this particular chain here has the very beginning, and then here's the last one. So let's go ahead and go back into this stitch right here and do a single crochet, just like that. And we're going to join to the very first stitch of the first round here. So let's go ahead and insert our hook, draw up a loop, and slip to close, chain 1, and then go back in there with a single crochet, just like that. Okay, so I'm going to grab a stitch marker. Let me sit this down. I'm going to grab a stitch marker, and I'm going to place the stitch marker into the bottom part of that chain. It looks a little wonky, and that's because we're starting a new row. So we have the stitch, the end stitch there, and then the top. So let me go ahead and place the stitch marker in that very first single crochet. Right in there. Okay. So we haven't really done any increases, right? Because we just finished the first round. We're starting the second round here, which is why that looks like that. Okay. So again, our stitch markers are placed, and feel free to rewind and replay just to make sure you have it. Okay. Just giving you some close-ups so you can see what we're doing here. Okay, so from here, we're going to work round number 2. So for round 2, we're going to do single crochets all the way down until we get to the first stitch marker, and at that point, we're going to start our increases. Okay, so go ahead and insert single crochets in every stitch of this side until we get to the very first stitch marker. I shall see you in just a second. Okay friends, so I made it to the first stitch marker without actually going in. And this is what we're looking like so far. We have 2 rows on one side. We still have yet to work the other side. Okay, so for round 2 here, on the first side here, we're going from 3 stitches to 6 stitches. Okay, so that means that each one of these stitches will receive twins in a stitch. Okay, so let's go ahead and take out this first stitch marker, and let's do twins in a stitch in every stitch of this side here. So there's 2 for that one. And then in this end stitch here, it may be a little tight, but that's okay. It's a bag. It needs to be tight. So let's go ahead and do twins in a stitch for that one. And then let's pop out this stitch marker right here and do twins in this stitch. 1 and 2. So we went from 3 to 6, right? So let's go ahead and insert a stitch marker in the stitch we just made. Okay. And now we got to count backwards, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which means this is where the stitch marker goes. Let me bunny ear that. So that's what we're looking like. Okay, so 3 stitches now became 6. So to continue, let's tighten up our tension. And then continue on doing single crochets until we come to the next set of stitch markers. Single crochets in every stitch. There's going to be a lot of single crochets because this is the base. We want to make sure that everything we put into our market bag doesn't fall through. And so, yes, you want to make sure these stitches are nice and tight and not loose. Okay, so continue doing this, friends, and I shall see you right down here at these stitch markers. Okay, friends, so I made it to the stitch marker. We're nearing the end of round number 2. And so, like the other side here, we want to make sure we're increasing from 3 stitches to 6 stitches. Okay, so as you can see, we have 3 stitches remaining. We have the stitch here from the previous round and then the stitch here from the new round. So what we want to do is take out the stitch markers and in the next 3 stitches here we're going to do twins in a stitch. So 2 single crochets for this stitch here, 2 stitches for the middle one here. And then in this stitch right here, we're going to do twins in a stitch. So before I go any further, let me bunny ear this. And I'm going to insert the stitch marker in the last stitch that I just made. Just like that. And I'm going to count back 6 stitches. And that's where the last corner is going to be. So the stitch that has the stitch marker is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's going to go right into this stitch right here. Let me just verify that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to put the yarn back on the hook, tighten up my tension, and now we are on round number 3. So I'm going to do single crochets all the way down until we get to the next stitch marker. So continue on with that, and I shall see you in just a few seconds. Okay, friends, so I am at the first stitch marker of round number 3. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we increase the number from 6 to 9. So if you ever get lost in your rounds, just count how many rounds you're on. So for us, it's 1, 2, and 3. And you multiply it by 3 because when we started with 3 stitches. So 3 rows times 3 stitches is 9 stitches. Okay? So if we were on round 10, and you needed to know how many stitches, it's 10 rounds multiplied by 3 because that's how many we started with. Okay, so you'll never get lost if you just remember that. So for round 3, we're going to do 9 stitches. So to do that, let's go ahead and take out this first stitch marker. And in this next stitch, what we're going to do is one standalone single crochet, and then twins in a stitch. Just like that. Now I'm going to take that stitch marker and place it back in that standalone so we don't lose our count. Okay, so there's that. Now what we need to do is a standalone, and then twins in a stitch next door. 1 and 2. And then we're going to do a standalone. And then in this last stitch, we're going to do twins in a stitch. Let me take that out. Twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. So that concludes the side here for round number 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and place that stitch marker back into the last stitch. Let me bunny ear that very quickly. Just make sure we get that in there correctly. There we go. Perfect. All right, so let's put the yarn back on the hook, and we're going to continue doing single crochets all the way down until we get to the next set of stitch markers right here. Okay friends, so I am at the next set of stitch markers. I'm rounding the end of round number 3. So what we're going to do is take out this stitch marker, do a standalone, and then I'm going to place that stitch marker back into the stitch that I just made. Okay. And then from there, like the other side, we did a standalone. Now we're going to do twins in a stitch. 2 singles. And then from here, we're going to do a standalone, and then twins in a stitch. And then we're going to do a standalone. And let's take out this stitch marker here, and we're going to do twins in a stitch. There we go. So I'm going to take this stitch marker and place it back into this last stitch, just like that. And there we have it. So now we are going to begin round 4. Very nice. Okay, so we're going to continue here from stitch marker to stitch marker, single crochets, and I will meet you right here. Okay friends, so I am at the stitch marker here. So this is the beginning of our round. So I'm on the first go around here. So round number 4, times that by 3 stitches. So 12 stitches is what we need from stitch marker to stitch marker. So let's pop this out. Here we go. And so to get 12 stitches, what we need to do is standalone and standalone, and then twins in a stitch. And let me place this stitch marker back where it belongs. So you just count back 4. So it's standalone, standalone, twins in a stitch. Okay. Let's move on here. Standalone, standalone, and then twins in a stitch. Just like that. And then we have 3 stitches remaining, so it's going to be standalone, standalone, twins in a stitch. stand alone, stand alone. Let's take that out. Then twins in a stitch. 1 and 2, just like that. So let me bunny ear this. There we go. All right, so let's go on and do single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker, and I will see you at the orange stitch marker. Okay friends, so here we are. This is what we're looking like so far. Very nice. And so we are closing in on the end of round number 4. So we're going to continue doing the repeat from this side here. So it's going to be standalone, standalone, twins in a stitch. Standalone, standalone, twins in a stitch. So repeat that 3 times for a total of 12 stitches. And so let's go ahead and take out this stitch marker. Let's do our little jingle here. Standalone, standalone, twins in a stitch. Standalone, standalone, twins in a stitch. Okay, and then we're going to do another repeat of that. So we're going to do standalone, standalone, twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. So let me bunny ear this. Use the red one to indicate the beginning and the end. And then from here, I'm going to count back 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So it's this stitch right here. Okay. So let's flip that over and put the yarn back on the hook. And so now we begin round number 5. So we're going to do singles all the way down from stitch marker to stitch marker, and I will see you at the first stitch marker. Okay, so I'm at the first stitch marker of round 5, and so the repeat for this is going to be 3 standalones and twins in a stitch. Okay, so I'm going to take out this stitch marker, and we're going to do the jingle. 3 standalones and twins in a stitch. So it's 1, that's 2 standalones, this is 3 standalones, and then we're going to do twins in a stitch. And so from here, I'm just going to count back 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can do it this way, or you can go all the way around and then count backwards from 15. So we're going to do 3 repeats of this sequence. So 3 standalones and twins in a stitch. So that is the first one. Let's go ahead and do the second one here. So 3 standalones, 1, 2, and 3. And then twins in a stitch. 1 and 2 in the same stitch. And then we're going to repeat that. 3 standalones and twins in a stitch. So the twins will always end up where the stitch marker is. So let's pop that out. Here we go. So let's do standalone 1, standalone 2, standalone 3, and twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. So we're going to insert our stitch marker in that very last stitch there. There we go. Okay. Looking super nice. It's laying perfect. Love that for us. Okay. So let's continue on with the single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker, and I will meet you at the orange stitch marker. Okay friends, so here we are at the orange stitch marker, nearing the end of round number 5. So let's go ahead and take out that stitch marker, and we're going to repeat our jingle, 3 standalones and twins in a stitch. So I'm going to do the first one with you, and then I'll meet you at the red stitch marker. So there's 1 standalone, 2 standalones, 3 standalones, and twins in a stitch. So go on and repeat that, and I will meet you at the red stitch marker. Okay friends, so I just finished my round here. I'm going to insert my red stitch marker. This color here is just my little reminder of the beginning and the end of the rounds. And then from here I'm going to count back 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Let me just do a bunny ear, make it easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So it's going to go into this stitch right there. Perfect. Okay. Love that. All right. So now we begin round number 6. And as always, single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker, and I will meet you at the yellow stitch marker. Okay friends, I am at the yellow stitch marker here, and so for round 6 we're going to need 18 stitches in total, which means 4 standalones and twins in a stitch. So let's go ahead and take out this stitch marker and do all the things. So let's go ahead and do 4 standalones and twins in a stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4 standalones and twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. Let's do that again. So it's 4 standalones. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. So that's what we're looking like. Perfect. Love that. And now we have the last repeat. So it's going to be 4 standalones and twins in a stitch, and the twins will always be right here in the stitch marker. So let's do 4 standalones. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and then there's 4. 4 standalones, and then let's take that out and do twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. So let's go ahead and bunny ear this and insert our stitch marker right there. And if you ever forget how many stitches to count back, as I mentioned before, count your rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and times that by 3. So you have to go back 18 stitches. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So it's right where my thumb is. And I always like to double check just to be sure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to insert the hook back into the yarn, and we're going to continue on with our single crochets. So continue doing single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker, and I will see you at the orange stitch marker. Okay? Okay friends, so I am at the orange stitch marker, and we are nearing the end of round number 6, indicated by the red stitch marker. And so, like this side here, we need 18 stitches, and the jingle, like before, over there, it was 4 standalones and twins in a stitch. So I'm going to do this first one with you and then meet you at the end of the round. So 4 standalones and twins in a stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4 standalones and then twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. Okay, so continue on and I will meet you at the red stitch marker, which is the end of round 6. Okay friends, so I just finished the twins in a stitch and I'm going to go ahead and place my stitch marker back in there, the last stitch, and then I'm going to count back 18 stitches very quickly. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Right there. And I always like to double check, just to be sure. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Perfect. Okay. So let me go ahead and get my stitch back. I don't think I put that in there correctly. That was a twin. Perfect. Let me go ahead and put that stitch marker back in there where it belongs so we don't lose our place. There we go. Okay, so now we are starting round 7. This is what we're looking like. Super nice. Love how it is all looking. Okay, so single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker, and I will see you at the yellow stitch marker. Okay friends, so I am at the yellow stitch marker here, and so for round 7, 7 times 3 is 21, so we need 21 stitches from stitch marker to stitch marker, and the jingle is 5 standalones and twins in a stitch. Okay, so let's go ahead and take that stitch marker out. Let's do 5 standalones. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, and that's 5. Now that we're getting into the bigger rounds here, I'm not going to wait until the end, so I'm just going to go back 5 and place my stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there we have it. Okay. So 5 standalones and then twins in a stitch. So let's go ahead in there. Twins in a stitch. And then let's repeat that. 5 standalones. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. So go ahead and repeat that and I'll meet you at the stitch marker right here. Okay friends, so I did my 5 standalones, my twins in a stitch still hasn't been done yet, so let me go ahead and take out my stitch marker and do my twins. Just like that. I'm going to place the stitch marker back in there. Okay, and now I'm going to do single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker. Just like that. Okay, so continue with that and I will be right back. Okay friends, so here I am at the orange stitch marker, nearing the end of round number 7. And like the other side here, we need 21 stitches from stitch marker to stitch marker, and the jingle is 5 standalones and twins in a stitch. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this out very quickly, do my 5 standalones, and then I'm going to place my stitch marker back where it belongs. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to place that stitch marker back in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just like that. And then I'm going to do twins in a stitch. And I'm going to repeat that. So it's going to be 5 standalones. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then twins in a stitch. One more time, and then we'll finish this part of round 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then let's pop this out and do twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. Here we go. Okay, so round number 8. We're almost done the rounds. We're only going to round 10. So 2 more rounds. Round number 8, as always, we're going to do single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker, and I shall see you at the yellow stitch marker. Okay friends, so here we are at the yellow stitch marker, and from stitch marker to stitch marker, as always, we're on round number 8. We're going to multiply that by 3, and we need 24 stitches from stitch marker to stitch marker. And the jingle is 6 standalones and twins in a stitch. So let's go ahead and pop this out. And let's do our 6 standalones. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Before we go any further, let's go back 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And there we have it. Perfect. So 6 standalones and twins in a stitch. Okay, let's repeat that. 6 standalones and twins in a stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 standalones, and then twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. So then finally, we will go ahead and do 6 standalones and twins in a stitch. And as always, your twins will end up right where the stitch marker is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's pop that out and do twins in a stitch, and that would conclude our side, which is great. Okay, let's go ahead and insert that stitch marker back in there. Perfect. Yep, very nice. Okay, so stitch marker to stitch marker, single crochets, and I shall see you at the orange stitch marker. Okay friends, so we're at the orange stitch marker, and like the other side, we're going to need 24 stitches to go from stitch marker to stitch marker. And so we're going to pop out this orange stitch marker and do our standalones. So we're going to need to do 6 standalones and twins in a stitch. So we'll do the standalones and then place the stitch marker back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's go ahead and put this back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 right there. And then let's do twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. And then we're going to do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. So that's what we're looking like. Super nice. We have one more repeat. Normally I'd stop, but let's keep going. So 6 standalones and twins in a stitch. So that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, and then that's 6. Whoops. Let's pop that out. Let's do our twins in a stitch. And let's put the stitch marker back in. And that last stitch there. And so now we are on round number 9. Okay. So, like previous rounds, stitch marker to stitch marker, all single crochets, and I will meet you at the yellow stitch marker. Okay friends, I am at the yellow stitch marker, and so from stitch marker to stitch marker, we need 27 stitches because we are on round number 9. Multiply by the 3 stitches that we started with, 27 stitches. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop this out. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 standalones and twins in a stitch. So I'll do the first one with you, and then I will meet you at the next stitch marker here. So 7 standalones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let's go ahead and go back 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Here we go. And then now we do twins in a stitch. And then 7 standalones and twins in a stitch. Continue on with that, and I will see you at the next stitch marker right here. Okay friends, so I did my 7 standalones, and now I have the stitch marker here. I'm going to pop that out, and I'm going to do my twins in a stitch. Just like that. I'm going to place that stitch marker back into that last stitch right there. And then we're going to continue on doing single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker, and I will see you at the orange stitch marker. Okay friends, so I am at the orange stitch marker here. So from stitch marker to stitch marker, we need 27 stitches. Let me pop this out. So it's going to be 7 standalones and twins in a stitch. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let me grab that stitch marker and go back 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then from there, we're going to do twins in a stitch in the next stitch there. That's 1. And that's 2. Perfect. And then we're just going to repeat that 7 standalones and twins in a stitch, 7 standalones and twins in a stitch. So continue on with that, and I will meet you at the red stitch marker. Okay friends, so I am at the red stitch marker. Let me just pop that out. And in the next stitch, we're going to do twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. And so let's go ahead and there we go. Okay, so we're now on round number 10. So round 10 is the last round of increases. Super nice, love this for us. So we're going to do single crochets from stitch marker to stitch marker, and then we'll meet you at the first stitch marker right here. Okay friends, so I am at the first stitch marker, and this is what we're looking like. So the repeat for this final round is 8 standalones and twins in a stitch. And we're going to repeat that 3 times for a total of 30 stitches. Okay, so let's just pop this out, and we will not be putting them back in. So we will no longer be increasing after this. So the only stitch marker we're going to keep in is this red one to let us know when the rounds start and stop. But the rest of them, they all come out. So 8 standalones and twins in a stitch. So let's go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 8 standalones, and then twins in a stitch. We're going to repeat that. 8 standalones and twins in a stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Twins in a stitch. And then we're going to do that a third and final time. No more increasing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then this stitch marker comes out, and in this next stitch it's going to be twins in a stitch. 1 and 2. Okay, so we're going to do single crochets from where I'm at right here all the way down to the next stitch marker. So continue on with that, and I will meet you at this orange stitch marker. Okay friends, so I am at the orange stitch marker, and so from stitch marker to stitch marker we're going to do a total of 30 stitches. So 8 standalones and twins in a stitch. So I'm going to do just the one with you, and then I will meet you at the red stitch marker. So we're going to take this out for the last time. Let's do 8 standalones and twins in a stitch. It's 1, that's 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then twins in a stitch. There we go. Okay, so continue repeating this 2 more times. 8 standalones and twins in a stitch. 8 standalones and twins in a stitch will happen right here in this red stitch marker. Okay, so continue on with this and I will meet you right at this stitch marker. Okay friends, so here we are at the red stitch marker, and I'm going to pop this out temporarily and do twins in a stitch. Just like that. And then I'm going to take the stitch marker and place it back into the stitch that we're coming out of. Just like that. Okay, so now this is what we're looking like. We have 10 rounds of single crochets. Let me just back this up a little bit. So this is the base, and this is the one side, and this is the other side. Very nice. Okay, so now from here, we're no longer increasing. So as I mentioned earlier, the only stitch marker we will have is the one that indicates the beginning and the ends of every round. So the next step in the process is we're going to do 4 rounds of half double crochets. There's no increasing. All you're doing is making sure that you place your stitch marker in the same stitch that you end in. Okay, so I'm going to do half double crochets with you, but I will not stay with you this entire round here because there are no increases. So just to be sure you have the stitch, let me just tighten my tension here. In the very next stitch, you're going to yarn over, go into your stitch, draw up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Technically we see 6, but they're doubled up, so 3. We're going to yarn over and go through all of the loops, just like that. Let's do it again. Yarn over, go in, draw up a loop, yarn over, and go through all the loops, just like that. Okay, so continue on with this for the entire round. This is round number 11, and it's going to look like this. Okay, and I will meet you back at this red stitch marker on this side right here. Okay friends, so I have a few stitches left before reaching the stitch marker here. So let's go ahead and do those few half double crochets. Here we go. Just like that. Okay, and so now we are at the red stitch marker. So that completes 1 round of half double crochets. And as I mentioned, we're going to do 4 rounds like this. So that is the end of round 1. So what I'm going to suggest is that we continue going. Continue going until you have the 4 rounds. And so don't count this side, count this side here. So we have round 1. So 3 more rounds of half double crochets, and I will meet you when we have 4 rows or rounds of half double crochets. Okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and hop on over. So let's remove this stitch marker and go into that second round here of half double crochets. We're just going to yarn over, go into the stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through all 3, just like that. Hold on to the hook. Where's that stitch marker? There it is. We're going to place the stitch marker right into the stitch, just like that. And that's the beginning of round 2. So from here, as I mentioned, we're going to continue doing half double crochets. Make sure that you have 4 rounds, and we will continue on after that. So once I have 4 rounds, I will meet you. For you, it's a few seconds. For me, a little longer. So I will be right back. Okay, friends, so I am back. I have 4 rounds of half double crochets. So 10 rounds of the base and 4 rounds of half doubles, so 14 rounds in total. And I am at the red stitch marker. So from here, to start round number 15 in that stitch, we're going to do twins in the stitch in every other stitch. So we're going to take this out, set that right there for 1 second. And in this very next stitch, we're going to do twins in a stitch, and it's going to be double crochets. So yarn over, go in, do a double crochet. Yep. And then do a double crochet in the same stitch. Just like that. And we're going to place the stitch marker in that very first stitch. Let me make a bunny ear. Just like that. Let's grab our hook and continue on. So from here, we're going to skip the next stitch, go into the following stitch there, and do twins in a stitch, 2 double crochets in that stitch, yarn over and skip, come to this stitch here, twins in a stitch, 2 double crochets. And we're only going to be doing this for 1 round. Twins in a stitch in every other stitch. Okay, so continue doing this, and I shall see you at the end of the round right here. Okay? Okay, friends, so I am coming up to the end of the 1 round of twins in a stitch. So we have the twins over here on this side, and we have the twins over here on this side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change colors. We're going to go to a white for the next section. So this here with the twins in a stitch, this is round number 15. So rounds 16 through 20 will be windows. So I'm going to do the windows in white for the purposes of this tutorial. Again, if you are using peaches and cream, you won't necessarily have to change colorways because all the colors are there. So it's fine. So let's go ahead and change colors. Let's cut a tail about yay long. I want to say that's about a good 6 inches. Just going to cut that off. And then we're going to bring in the white. Just like that. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to convert from twins in a stitch to windows. Now, to do this, what we're going to do is we are going to pull this out. This is the last stitch of round 15. We're going to pull this back out. So I'm going to do a double crochet. Well, I'm going to finish the twin, but I'm only going to do it halfway. So we're going to yarn over, go into the stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 only. And then from here, I'm going to grab the white, making sure that I have a nice, decent tail. And then I'm going to hook in to finish the stitch, just like that. And then I'm going to lay everything down, and I'm going to tie my tails. Nice and tight. Then I'm going to make sure that the tails stay on the inside, just like that. Okay, so now we are ready to move on. So in this stitch right here where the stitch marker is, now by the way, clearly there is a stitch left open. So it was twins in a stitch and skip, and now we're back into this. So this is correct. So let's take the stitch marker off here. Set this right here temporarily. And then what we want to do is in this stitch that we just took the stitch marker out from, we're going to go ahead and do a double crochet. Chain one and skip one and double crochet in the next. So this is what rounds 16 through 20 will be. Chain one, skip one, double crochet in the next. You're just creating windows for 5 rounds. Rounds 16 through 20 will be windows. So before we go any further, let me go ahead and place the stitch marker back into this stitch. There we go. And so, yeah, for the next 5 rounds, we are going to do windows. Just like that. So continue on making the windows, and I will meet you back at the red stitch marker on this side right here. Okay? I'll see you in just a second. Okay, friends, so I am back, and I have reached the stitch marker. I just wanted to show you how it's actually folding in, and that's okay because, again, we're making a bag. So it should do this. All right? So if your counts are correct, and I'm assuming they are, we should be landing right on top of where we started. Okay? So what we're going to do here is we have the chain there, a double crochet and a chain. So we're going to remove the stitch marker here. We're going to place a double crochet on top of the double crochet. So we're going to give that an upstairs neighbor. And let's go ahead and place this stitch marker back into the first stitch of the new round. This is round number 17. Just like that. And it looks like it's staggered, but it isn't. This stitch anatomy has this as the head of the stitch. Let me make a bunny ear and show you. So you see this part right here? That's the head of the stitch. It sits behind the actual post of the stitch. So that's fine. Okay? So from here, we're going to chain one, go into the head of the stitch, which is right here, and just do your double crochet. And you're going to continue on making windows like this. Okay, so we need 5 rounds of these windows. Okay, so continue on with this, and I will see you after we have 5 rounds of windows. Okay, friends, so I am back at the red stitch marker. I have 5 rounds of windows. Super nice. And so we have just completed round number 20. Okay, so for round number 21, I'm going to do twins in a stitch. So I'm going to cut a tail here, about 6 inches or so. Okay, and from here I'm actually going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to pull out. And I'm going to do this double crochet halfway through, just like that. And then I'm going to pull the tan back, making sure that I have a nice decent tail to work with. I'm going to hook that through, just like that. I'm going to tie the tails. Nice and tight. Okay, and the tails we can just tuck behind or inside our bag. Okay, so from here, as I mentioned, we're going to do twins in a stitch. And so in the stitch with the red stitch marker, we're going to place 2 double crochets, twins in a stitch. Wait, first we need to chain 1. Sorry about that. Now twins in a stitch. Perfect. And then we're just going to jump right into the next stitch and do twins. No chains, nothing of the sort, just a series of twins in a stitch. And you're inserting the tip of your crochet hook into the head of the stitch, which is that space right there when you do your twins. So not into the chain spaces, but into the actual stitches. Okay? So continue on with this, and I shall see you at the end of the round, which is indicated by this red stitch marker, which I'm going to place right here, just like that. So I'll see you right here at the end of the round. Okay? Okay, friends, so I just finished round number 21, and we did twins in a stitch in every stitch there, not including the chains. So for round number 22, we're going to do the double cross stitch. So to do that, we're going to jump over the stitch marker and do a double crochet in this stitch right here. And then we're going to remove the stitch marker and go back to the stitch closest to our crochet hook right there. And do a double crochet, just like that, doing a double cross. Let's do that again. So we're going to yarn over, go to these 2 stitches right here, twins in a stitch, and we're going to insert our crochet hook into the stitch furthest away and do a double crochet. And now we're going to come back into the skipped stitch and do a double crochet. Just like that. We'll do it one more time just to make sure you guys are good. So we're going to come over to these pair of stitches, twins in a stitch. We're going to insert a double crochet in the furthest stitch and then come back and do a double crochet in this stitch here. So let's yarn over, go in, double crochet, yarn over, and then come back. Just like that. Okay, so continue doing the double crosses for this round. This is round number 22, and I shall see you at the beginning of our round, which is right here, the very first double cross. Okay, so I'll see you on this side right here. Okay, friends, so I just finished up round number 22. I am back at the stitch marker. We have a round of double crosses here. And so now what I want to do is I want to switch back over to the white, and I'm going to do another 5 rounds of windows. It will be the last 5 rounds of windows, so we won't have to worry about windows anymore after this. So what we need to do here is we need to cut a tail like before. And what we're going to do is pull out this last double crochet here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and do it halfway, but only go through 2 and leave the rest of it on the hook just like that. I'm going to bring the white back, and I'm going to leave an adequate tail, hook and slip in just like that. And I'm going to tie the tails. Just like that. Then I'm going to take the tails and stuff them in the back, inside the bag, so to speak. And then from here, I'm going to jump right into the very first stitch where the stitch marker is. I'm going to go ahead and do a double crochet right into that stitch marker, and then I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to skip the next stitch and go into the next double cross. So all of the crosses, the first stitch, the side closest to the hook, will receive a double crochet and then a chain. So this cross has this stitch, there's a chain one there, and then we're going to yarn over and go into this cross, this stitch right here, and do a double crochet. Let's get that stitch marker out of there, and we're going to insert that stitch marker right here, the first stitch of the round. We're going to chain one and skip one and go into the next stitch. Chain one, skip one, go into the next stitch. Oops. There we go. And as you can see, only the one side of the cross has the stitch. The other side of the cross has the chain. Okay, so chain one, skip one, come to the next stitch with a double crochet. Alright, so continue on with that, and I'll see you at the red stitch marker on this side of the round. Okay friends, so this is the end of round number 23. So we have windows here. So we're going to do 4 more rounds of windows. So this is 23, 24, 25, 26, 23, 24, 25, so up to round 27. So this is 23. We need 4 more rounds of windows. And yeah, so let's connect this round to the first stitch here. So we have a chain and a double crochet here. Let's yarn over and go into the first stitch there, double crochet, chain one, and we're going to hop right over to the next stitch here with a double crochet. Essentially, we're repeating what we did down here. Okay, so I'm going to place the stitch marker back here so I don't lose my place. Just like that. And in total, we want 5 rounds of windows, just like this down here. And once you have all 5 rounds done up top here, you will be on round number 27. So we're just going to continue on with this, doing a chain and then a double, just making windows on top of windows. Just like this. Okay, so continue on with this, and I will see you at round number 27 at the end on this side right here. So you should see 5 rounds on this side of the stitch marker. Okay, so I'll see you right there. Okay friends, so here we are at the end of round number 27. I've done 5 rounds of double crochet chain ones, and this is kind of what we're looking like right now. Super nice, love that. Okay, so now for the next round, what we're going to do is we're going to change over to this brown color here, and we're going to put a border on the bag. So it's going to be 5 rounds of single crochet, and what we're going to do now is we're going to cut a tail. So we're going to cut about 6 inches, and let me just grab the scissors. Let's go ahead and cut about 6 inches, and we're going to bring the brown up to the table. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to pull this stitch out. So let's go ahead and pull this back out, And when we do the double crochet, we're going to do it halfway. So we're going to yarn over, go in the stitch, draw a loop, yarn over, and only go through 2. From here, we're going to grab the new color, hook it in just like that, and slip it through. And then let's fold this over and tie in the tails. Just like that. And then the tail, or the tails, should be like behind here. Perfect. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to do 5 rounds of single crochet. 1 single crochet in every stitch and in every chain space. So from here, that's a double crochet. We're going to, let me grab that, chain 1. And then we're going to come right over here to the stitch. Let's just pull this one out here. Let's go ahead and put a single crochet in here. Just go in the stitch, drop a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops, just like that. Then from here, we're going to go into the chain space with a single crochet, and then in the stitch with a single crochet, just like that. Let's put that stitch marker back in there, just like that. Okay. So as I said, every chain space, every stitch will receive a single crochet. Just like this. So continue on with this, and I will see you at the end of the round right on this side here. Okay friends, so here we are at the end of round number 28. It's the first round of single crochets, as you can see here. So from here, what we want to do is go into the very first stitch of the round. Let's take the stitch marker out. Let's insert our hook into that first stitch, drop a loop, and just continue on with the single crochets. Let's go back in there. Just like that. Okay, so we're just going to continue on, and you want to make sure that you have 5 rounds of single crochets. You're literally doing the same thing that we just did for this round 28 here. So you're just going into every stitch and doing a single crochet, and when you get to the end of the round, you're just going to continue on business as usual and just replace the stitch marker 1 row above in the same stitch. Okay, so we will meet back when we have 5 rounds of single crochets.